project. I'm really excited. I've read about it. It looks absolutely fantastic. And what I love about Sarah's project is that it shows us that the way that film can have its effect is not necessarily by being a feature doc and being in the cinema. It's about knowing exactly what your film is for and who it's for. Please give Sarah a big round of applause. So you need to, hit that one, hang on to it all. Okay. Shall I do this one?
No, that's during the budget.
Oh, I was there? Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay,
We don't want to break the rules.
You all ready?
I'm all ready.
Okay, good. You haven't started the time yet, have you? Okay, all right, good. You're on.
Whenever you're ready. Right. Okay, we haven't got a made film to show you. Our film is a project that we want to do if we get funding. And it's one that combines two really big ideas. So the first idea I'm going to tell you about is one that you'll probably be familiar with, because I think that you may have sometimes listened to Radio 4 or read a broadsheet newspaper. And that is restorative justice. Now, to refresh your memory, restorative justice brings the victim of a crime, the harmed person, and the perpetrator of that crime, the harmer, face to face. It gives victims the chance to tell their offenders the real impact on them of what's happened and to ask questions. Now, often that's where the first question comes from, why me? That's why our organisation is called that. And it holds offenders really to account. It gives them the chance to make amends, and it is a very powerful and very effective tool. Now, you've got the offender. He's faced with his own victim or her own victim, a real person who's looking at them directly. There's nowhere to hide. They're confronting what they've done, and it's a pivotal moment. It can be a really pivotal moment in their lives and really stop them in their tracks to think about their offending behaviour. And they sort of look at the victim and they think, yeah, this is a real person. This is who I hurt when I offend. And then at the other side of the circle, you've got the victim. And they're able to actually tell the person who's responsible for the crime exactly how it's affected them. And they get an apology. They often get an apology, and they get peace of mind. And when they leave that room, they leave that circle, they are no longer a victim. So, if in doubt, show them a piece of art. Here's restorative justice in action. 4,000 years ago, it's Jacob and Esau's reconciliation from the Old Testament as depicted by Rubens. So, restorative justice. The Maoris do it, the Native Americans do it. They used to do it in town hall meetings in 17th century America. And now we've started to do it. Why? Well, because it works. Here's a couple of statistics. RJ, that's the acronym, the only one I'll be using, cuts reoffending by 27%. Now that's a lot. If you ask any policeman, any prison person, cutting reoffending by 27%, that's effective. And 85% of victims are satisfied with it. Now if you contrast that with the fact that only 30% of victims have any confidence in the court process at all, that's pretty impressive. By the way, RJ doesn't run as an alternative to the criminal justice system. It's embedded within it. And a recent innovation is the creation of neighbourhood justice panels which use RJ. They're largely replacing ASBOs. I always remember one of my heroines is the late great Linda Smith, the comedienne. She was asked what she thought of ASBOs, and she said, well, you know, it's the only qualification some of these kids ever get. So, what's the problem? What are we trying to do here? Well, we've got several amazing prison programmes that are really producing, really throwing up offenders now who want to take part in RJ. But if we're failing to deliver the message of the power of RJ to the victims, it's not working. We're failing to do that. And without victims, there is no RJ. So how can we get them to take part? Well, we have to show them and explain to them how it works. Now, many victims are deterred from agreeing to take part or from seeking even RJ because they don't know what's expected of them and they don't know whether it's safe. So we want to show that it is, and that they're not obliged to understand or forgive the offender. And we also want to show them that the offender is thoroughly prepared before he or she goes into the room, and they are judged to be sincere. So what we want to get rid of is any misunderstanding at all about what RJ is about, and proper preparation of victims ensures that this never happens, by the way. So you're all people who've got an interest in making films, and you're filmmakers, and you're thinking, well, why can't you just stick a camera in the room when RJ is going on, and then you'd be able to make a nice promotional DVD out of real footage. Well, you know what, we can't. Because having a camera in a meeting really changes the dynamic. It's an incredibly emotional and personal time for everyone there, and they really only have one go at it. So there are also issues, of course, of anonymity. Now, most offenders don't want to be identified as such for posterity, because they've got to go out there and rebuild their lives. So if they're in a film as an offender, that's not really very good for them. So we've got to look at an alternative to showing what goes on in an RJ conference. And this brings me to the second idea, which is verbatim theatre. Now, this is a new idea, and it's a way of showing a very authentic reconstruction of proceedings. An audio recording of RJ meetings will be used. Actors will be specially trained in the technique and fed lines through an earpiece. And they speak the real words in the same accents with the same pauses, sniffs and ticks as the person who spoke them originally. So it's much more real than an actor who's just learnt lines from a script. You may have heard of a verbatim play called The Colour of Justice, which recreated the Macpherson inquiry into the Stephen Lawrence murder inquiry. What we're going to do is choose 2 real RJ meetings, and we're going to employ a verbatim director and actors, and we think this will take 3 or 4 days with a shooting day at the end, and then we'll edit the performances down into a 10-minute film. So we think this will really open up RJ to a really wide audience: offenders, victims, police, prison people, probation people, people like you and me. Who hasn't been burgled, mugged, pickpocketed, or worse, and who hasn't wanted to say, you know, I'd like to tell whoever did this a thing or two. So there it is, a film of the human story. We've got redemption, restoration, we're even throwing in narrative and theatre and a bunch of lovies into it all.